What's going on? Welcome back to another episode of Battle in the Trenches presented by Climb the Pocket. It is week 16, championship week. If it's not your championship week, you're doing it wrong. Text your commissioner, let him know week 17 should not be your championship week. It's this week. It's 16. Hopefully you made it this far. Hopefully our advice helped us all get there, help you get there. We've had your start sits at quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end all throughout the season. Hopefully have led you here to week 16 to hopefully take home the money, take home the prize, the bragging rights, all of which we play fantasy football for. We're here to give you the starts at all those positions to help you win your championship this week. Drop a comment below any of your start sit questions that you might want an opinion on, some advice to help you win your championship week this week. We got a pretty good announcement going on. We had a giveaway going on week 14 and 15's video for a signed Davante Adams jersey. And the winner of that jersey, the beautiful jersey right there in front of you, that white Green Bay Davante Adams jersey, is Joseph Ciccioliti. Sorry if I butchered your name. DM the Climb the Pocket Twitter to claim your prize. Congratulations. We really appreciate you being a subscriber. Like the video if you like the video, and subscribe if you're new. We got tons of good content coming out in the off season. It sucks that fantasy season's over, but hey, it's almost best ball season, so get excited for that. Yeah, I haven't heard that in a while. Ryan, what's going on, man?
First, I would like to echo your Week 17 championship statement, which if you get a Week 17 championship, I don't know what you're doing, but there's another culprit in the fantasy world that is also a travesty, and that's 2-week playoff matchups, and that also usually ends up in a Week 17 championship just based on scheduling. If you've got 2-week playoff matchups, get rid of them. I absolutely despise those formats. I don't know why. I guess it's to get rid of boom games, but I mean that's half the fun of fantasy football. If you've got leagues like that and you enjoy them, I'd kind of like to know why you enjoy them. So if there's a general reason why you like leagues like that, let me know in the comments, because the leagues that I'm in like that just infuriate me. I just can't get past those leagues. But aside from that, Steve, Christmas shopping's done. Santa's ready. Everything's kind of wrapped. I mean, it's under paper. It doesn't look great, but it gets the job done. I hope you're going to have a nice white Christmas down in Florida. Did you at least go shopping yet? Have you done any of that yet?
Yeah, I got some gifts. Christmas is low key this year. I
Yeah,
just bought a house and everything, so that's
home
my
ownership.
gift.
Home ownership flex. That's fine.
Yeah. But man, week 17, don't do it, people. It is hard to win in the fantasy playoffs. You shouldn't be given a gift. Have a down week in the playoffs, you should be out. That's how it should work. It's not easy to win. But hopefully it's easier to win after you watch this video, because we're going to go ahead and get into the starts and sits for week 16, the championship matchup. Starting it off at the quarterback position, my first start is Deshaun Watson versus Cincinnati. And this guy's actually been really good for fantasy over the last 4 or 5 weeks. Actually, the whole season. I believe he's quarterback 5 or 6 on the year. Low key, a name that doesn't like to be talked about so much this year because he hasn't had the weapons around him. He lost Will Fuller a few weeks back. That first game in Chicago, wasn't good just a few weeks back without Will Fuller, and that was really his only down game lately. Since then, he's been playing really well. Goes against Cincinnati, that Big Ben and the Steelers seem to struggle with, but I'm not going to bring that up. I think that whole offense is kind of struggling. We'll get in on that in a little while. But I think Deshaun Watson's a pretty safe play. Kiki QT's been playing pretty decent. Brandon Cooks just got back in the mix last week. I think you should have a good fantasy day for you. You can trust him in your fantasy championship unless you have a much better option, possibly like this next quarterback I'm going to talk about, and that's Jalen Hurts going against Dallas. Fantasy darling here to help you win your championship. If you picked him up and you weren't doing too well at the quarterback position, you don't have a guy who's a better option. You found diamond in the rough right there, because Jalen Hurts is playing out of his mind. Just a couple games at the start of the first game, he gets around 20 fantasy points, but this last one ends up as the number one quarterback on the week. What an amazing quarterback week last week we had with Josh Allen, Tannehill, Jalen Hurts, and some other good guys, up in the upper 20s and whatnot, some points. That was a really good quarterback performance by, across the fantasy landscape. But Jalen Hurts has really been getting it done. Over 165 yards on the ground in his first 2 games. That's unbelievable. Gets a rushing touchdown last week. Was able to come alive in the pass game. And, man, when you watch those Eagle games, and I'm sure you are, everyone just looks better. I mean, all the receiving options look better. They're able to get it done. It's just completely night and day with Carson Wentz out of there and Jalen Hurts under center. Going against Dallas, fantastic matchup. I think there are only 5 maybe 5 guys, maybe 4 guys I'd rather play than Jalen Hurts this week, and that's incredible how far we've come. So start Jalen Hurts, start Deshaun Watson. I'm sure you want to just touch in on that just for a second.
I think you know what you're doing, Steve. It's tough for me to say anything but high praise for Jalen Hurts. He's been absolutely electric. He's been the spark the Eagles needed. Might be a little too late, but his matchup is unbelievable this week. He's really made that offense look good. It seems like the offense was made for Jalen Hurts to run rather than Wentz. So he goes in there and looks 1,000% better than Wentz did. He still got sacked 6 times, which is concerning as an Eagles fan. It doesn't really affect you as a fantasy player because at this point it's just giving Jalen Hurts more yards to work with for fantasy, which it's crazy to go from despising watching the Eagles every single week to watching them and being just impressed with everything that happens. So I'm definitely on board the Jalen Hurts start train. I told you to start him this past week. So, I mean, you got to ride the hot hand. And
his confidence is just really fun to watch. That him coming out of college, he's mentioned that he doesn't get razzled, and that's what we saw with Wentz is he looked razzled. And even behind that offensive line, like you mentioned, still took 6 sacks. I think I saw you tweet on Sunday that you think Carson Wentz probably would have taken 8 sacks.
Oh, 100%.
They're allowing sacks. That's what that offensive line is doing. But Jalen Hurts is a little more mobile, probably eliminated a few of those sacks that would happen. And his confidence, his ability to almost win the game there in that last 2-minute drill, very, very impressive. And I think he can get it done. He's going to be he's going to be their quarterback of the future. They're going to have to find something to do with Carson Wentz. It's just not going to happen.
I mean, Jalen Hurts came out in a press conference and said he wants to be the coffee bean. I think he said that either Oklahoma or Alabama, and then he said it again like 2 weeks ago. And as soon as he said he wanted to be a coffee bean, I'm not sure what it means, but I'm on board. Big coffee guy. So, definitely like Jalen Hurts. It's going to be very interesting to see what they do in Philly. But my starts, the first start is the pretty boy assassin, Mitch Trubisky, against the Jacksonville Jaguars. They're playing a rough team that now is the sole owner of the first pick. The Bears seemingly are starting to kind of figure out what they need to do on offense, and that's run the ball. There's no surprise there, and it's made it 1,000% easier for Mitch Trubisky to kind of go through his reads after that. I mean, on those read options to Dave Montgomery, he can take off for 15, 20 yards. I mean, that's not out of the possibility for Trubisky. He's an athletic guy, so his floor is pretty solid. I mean, against a Jaguars defense that has been getting gashed through the air, I definitely like Trubisky's, I guess, just the optics for him this week. I really do think that they know that they can win this game, and they should win this game. I don't think they're going to do anything crazy. But I think Trubisky, if he leaves with 2 or 3 total touchdowns, you feel pretty good about starting him, especially if you're in a game that, if you're in the toilet bowl this week and you need a quarterback because your quarterback play has been terrible, there's no way somebody still has Mitch Trubisky. So if you can pick him up and play him over some of the guys we're about to touch on, I definitely would do that. I'm also starting Baker Mayfield against the Jets. The Jets also kind of need to lose. I think that it was great for them to win this past week. But I think they got the win out of the way, and they're going to kind of regress back to being a terrible, terrible football team. And Baker Mayfield saw what happened last week. He's not going to take that for granted. He saw that the Rams, the much better team, lost to the Jets. And I think Baker, once again, isn't going to try to do too much. They're going to rely on the run game. But when he's got the opportunity to throw, they're going to take advantage of. They've got, I think, Lamar Jackson, the cornerback, out there, and Bryce Hall, the TikTok star, playing corner. They've got 2 incredible names in the Jets' defensive backfield. And that's all I know about their defensive backfield, aside from they're not good. So I'm a big fan of Baker this week. He's been great the last couple weeks. So definitely fire up Baker, which is not something I was thinking at the beginning of the year, that Baker could win you a matchup in your championship game.
Yeah, Baker playing noticeably more confident when you watch him. Let's go move on to the sit quarterbacks. Big name, would not have expected this Week 16 or anywhere in the playoffs, but Russell Wilson against the Rams. Russell Wilson is no longer the MVP in the NFL in 2020. He's just not. Something's happened with that team. They've lost what they know how to do, and they're not doing it anymore. He hasn't been good for fantasy in over a month. Had a down game last week against Washington. Sort of predictable. Washington's defense has been really well. The Rams' defense is really good. I know they just lost to the Jets. You know they're going to come back with more fire. They cannot afford to lose more games if they want a good seed in the playoffs. And Russell Wilson, like I said, he just has not been playing well. You can't trust him. Hopefully you have a guy like you picked up Jalen Hurts or a Baker Mayfield, like you just mentioned. I'd rather play Baker over Russell Wilson, and that's tough because I'm not a big Baker Mayfield fan. Much better matchup. He's playing much better, and that's what you have to do to win fantasy football championships. So I'm sitting Russell Wilson this week. I know it's tough, but you got to do it. I'm also sitting Big Ben against Indianapolis. He was my start last week. Thought maybe they had a game to win. They had something to show. It didn't happen. They've now lost multiple games in a row. Big Ben against Indianapolis is not a great matchup. I don't know if they're going to have a bounce-back game because I thought that game would be against Cincinnati, but they honestly lost that game. It was not good. It was not good. It wasn't fun to watch. They should have tore apart the Cincinnati Bengals, and they fell on their face. And Big Ben did too. He lost a lot of people their fantasy football season, him and Deontay Johnson and whatnot. And I'm not blaming them. The team is struggling, and because of that, against the Colts, good defense, I don't like it. You got to go elsewhere this week, so I'm sitting Big Ben.
Listen, my boy Deontay Johnson was great this past weekend.
He could have even had a bigger game,
Yeah, the defensive pass interference at the end of the game that Snell eventually scored on, I don't think he would have caught, but it was there. But I was shockingly surprised at how good Johnson looked with his hands. After the last couple of weeks, I was expecting a bounce back game for him, and he showed up, which was nice.
Yeah.
But the rest of the Steelers didn't, and the Bengals showed up with a chip on their shoulder. They looked like they were the team that was 11-2 or whatever the Steelers were, and that game was just fun to watch, just because I kind of like a little bit of chaos in the NFL. Yeah. So hopefully Big Ben figures it out. But I don't think it's this week against one of the best defenses in the league. But my sits, similar big names. I'm sitting Drew Brees against Minnesota. No Michael Thomas. They've got to kind of work Kamara in strictly. They need to get Murray working a little bit. I hate the options they have in the pass game. I just don't enjoy any of those guys. And I think Minnesota knows what they need to do to win that game. I think it's going to be a heavy Dalvin Cook game. They're going to need to control the ball and get out of there with an ugly win, like a 17-13 win, because Minnesota is railing a little bit too. I think Minnesota is going to try to get back to what they're known for, and that's kind of Kirk Cousins throws 22 times, maybe, and Dalvin Cook has 25 touches, and that's the way that they're going to try to win that game. So I don't expect a ton of volume for Drew Brees, and I don't like who he's throwing to. So that's an easy sit for me. I'm also sitting Matt Ryan against Kansas City. Kansas City, sneaky good on defense. They've been better on defense than I expected them to be, just because the last couple years they haven't been great defensively, and they're kind of starting to feast on when their offense goes up. Their defense kind of pins their ears back, and they go after the QB. And it's great to watch the Chiefs. And they're really putting it all together. They seem like the far and away best team in the league. And you take Matt Ryan out of the dome in a high-pressure situation where I know they don't really have a whole lot to play for, but Matt Ryan has the rest of his career to play for at this point. It's going to be interesting to see where Matt Ryan goes this offseason, but I don't think he stays in Atlanta. And this is a game that's going to be a litmus test for other teams to say he can handle it. So I don't think he's going to handle it, which is unfortunate. He's from my hometown, so I'm sorry, Matt. There's no way you're watching this, but I'm sitting you this week.
If he watches it, man. Oh, that'd be awesome. Let's go to the starter running backs, and this one has a contingency to it, but I'm starting Sallvon Ahmed. Last week, well over 20 carries, over 120 rushing yards against the Patriots, a respectable defense. He's been pretty good whenever he's been the starter for the Miami Dolphins, and we've seen that with Gaskin, we've seen it with Ahmed. whoever's the starter and gets the majority of the carries, usually plays pretty well, and that's what he's been doing. We don't know exactly Gaskin's injury status at the time of this recording. If you watch this video and Gaskin's healthy, you might want to look at other options. I don't know if this is the type of team just plug Gaskin back in like he's their number one running back and give him all the carries. I think Ahmed will still have a role, but certainly not my start of the week at running back like I'm suggesting. If he is the only guy out there going against the Raiders are bottom 4 in the league in rushing defense, so it's going to be a good matchup. He's going to get a lot of carries. I think Miami handles the Raiders this weekend, so I do like that play. I'm also starting Leveon Bell versus Atlanta. We did get some news that CEH will most likely, and I think he is, missing the remainder of the season with a high ankle sprain, I believe. So Le'Veon Bell is going to get to work. We saw a pretty high volume last week, obviously, because CEH went down. He had 15 rushes, a little over 50 yards, and got in the end zone. If you can find the end zone again and going against Atlanta, this offense is going to be able to move. They move against every team, the Kansas City Chiefs. So Le'Veon Bell is going to have, I think, a good day. I think he's going to be involved in all aspects, possibly in the passing game a little more this week. And I think Kansas City Chiefs just pummel Atlanta. And even if they go up early, I think they give the ball to Le'Veon a little more towards the end of the game. So I think he's a pretty safe play this week. I know he has not been good this year. He wasn't good last year. It's going to be tough to put him in your lineup, but it's championship week. You got to find your flex. You got to fill it. Maybe there's a guy that you just got injured or that's injured. Michael Thomas is out. There's other guys that are injured. Maybe you had CEH. Maybe you had him backed up with Lev Bell. I think you throw him in there. I think it's a safe, not safe, but I think you can be confident. We don't. No one's safe in fantasy, but putting Lev Bell in there on the Chiefs, he's going to get the volume. So I think that's a pretty safe play. Who are you starting? Running backs.
I've got to go with Jonathan Taylor against Pittsburgh. And you're saying, why are you saying this, Ryan? I feel like Jonathan Taylor should be a slam dunk start. I know there's people out there that see Jonathan Taylor against the Steelers and immediately are thinking, maybe I shouldn't start him. You have to start Jonathan Taylor this week. Pittsburgh looked susceptible to the run this past week against the Bengals, who have Gio Bernard, who's still only 28, but seems like he's 37 years old. And they've got Samaje Perine, who, looks like he could also be 37, but is also only like 28 years old. I really think that the lack of depth for the Steelers at linebacker is hurting them. If you run away from TJ Watt, you're going to be all right. They've had, I don't know how many linebackers go down, but all of them, I'm pretty sure, is the answer. They had another one go down against the Bengals. I don't even remember his name at this point. They've had Spillane go down, Devin Bush go down. Anybody that's been contributing at the linebacking position for the Steelers has gotten hurt, which is unfortunate, but you need to take advantage of that. So Jonathan Taylor still feels like a great play to me. He should still see running back 1 numbers, especially if they go up in this game, which I think that they possibly can. I think they are I believe they're the favorite this week, and if they go up, it's going to be a Jonathan Taylor game. So I love JT this week. I'm also starting Melvin Gordon against the Chargers. For some reason, the Chargers can't put teams away, and that's not going to be a whole lot different than Denver this week. I mean, they can't put bad teams away. I can't look you in the face and tell you that the Raiders are that much better of a team than the Broncos, but I think Melvin Gordon should see numbers similar to Josh Jacobs this past week, and Jacobs had a great day against the Chargers. He found the end zone. He was pretty solid pass catching, and I mean he saw numbers through the ground. So I'm a big fan of getting him out there. I really do like Melvin Gordon this week, and I'm trying to find these guys that are fringe start guys because this is where the money's made, and I really think you should take advantage of matchups like the Chargers and Steelers this week.
All right, moving on to the sit-in running backs, and I'm going to sit any of the Patriots running backs. That's James White, Damian Harris if he plays, Sony Michel. And this is another contingency kind of because we don't know if Damian Harris is going to play at the time of this recording. Sony Michel had a decent week last week, but going against Buffalo, past 4 games have actually been pretty decent. Only 2 rushing touchdowns allowed over that 4 games and only 1 50-yard rusher. So I think that I don't know if I can trust Sony Michel in my championship week in my lineup. And certainly if Damian Harris comes back, you figure that's going to be some sort of 3-headed split backfield. I don't trust anyone on the Patriots, especially at the running back position in this matchup. think you go elsewhere. Just don't even play with it. I'm also seeing Wayne Gallman, who's been a start for me in the past couple weeks, not every week, but sprinkled in there. They're kind of going away from him with the usage. A steady decline for the last 4 or 5 weeks in the usage attempts for the rushing, and I don't know if it goes up against Baltimore. They're going to have a tough time scoring on him. They're going to have a tough time moving the ball, and he's primarily their running back. Not too much work in the passing game. So I don't like any of the Giants in this game. So certainly starting the running back in a losing situation where you're trying to come back, you got to throw the ball a lot. I don't like this matchup. And Baltimore, they've been susceptible to the run against good backfields like the Browns. But I wouldn't consider the Giants' backfield a good backfield, something to be threatened with. So I don't like Wayne Gallman this week. He stays on your bench. Who you sitting?
I gotta sit DeAndre Swift against Tampa Bay, and it's not because I don't believe in DeAndre, right? It's because it's got to be the final year of Adrian Peterson, right? And for some odd reason, AP has seen, I think it was 53% of the carries inside the 5. You need touchdowns in fantasy football, and Adrian Peterson hawking DeAndre Swift carries in the red zone is super frustrating. Plus, they're going against Tampa Bay, who is great against the run. I really do like Tampa Bay's front. But DeAndre Swift's time is coming, right? He's going to be the bell cow eventually. But seeing 30% of the carries inside the 5 is not going to cut it for me, especially as the season winds down. The Lions don't have a whole lot to play for besides, some draft positioning. And Adrian Peterson, I feel like, has to retire eventually, right? Is it this year? I feel like there's a good chance. I feel like there's a good chance Adrian Peterson retires. They're going to give Adrian Peterson the ball in the red zone. They're not going to pass the torch to DeAndre Swift this week, the rest of the year. They're going to give Adrian Peterson those carries. It's unfortunate for DeAndre Swift fans, but Adrian Peterson is a football legend, and I don't see him just going out on the sideline. So,
and they're wrong for doing that because they'd win more games, and clearly
100%.
they're trying to lose because DeAndre Swift is the one capitalizing on those red zone carries
100%.
that he does get. It's so obvious, and they keep AP in there to run 3 straight times into the line and then not get over the goal line, and then DeAndre Swift comes in there on his first carry on 3rd down and he gets in. It's just very obvious what they're doing. They don't want to win games.
I mean, it's a super frustrating thing because, you need 5 yards. Adrian Peterson gets you 3 yards. You need 1 yard. Adrian Peterson gets you 3 yards. He's going to get you 3 yards regardless of, what the down and distance is. Mm-hmm. And DeAndre Swift, another Philly kid, absolutely loved him out of the draft. 1,000% more explosive, obviously, at this point in Adrian Peterson's career. And when Adrian Peterson's in the game, I think you know what's coming. I think you understand what the play is when Adrian Peterson's in the game. It's going to be a run play. So there's that. But I'm also sitting, unfortunately, my boy, got to sit Kenyan Drake. Congrats, Chase Edmonds owners. You got to week 16, and Chase Edmonds out-touched Kenyan Drake last week. He had 11 carries and I think 4 or 5 receptions to – I think Kenyan had 10 carries and 1 catch. So congrats. You guys held on to Chase Edmonds this long. He scored. That was great. You probably have already been eliminated. But I've got to sit Kenyan Drake against San Fran just because it seems like that backfield is starting to shift more to a 50-50 rather than it being Kenyan Drake on 1st and 2nd downs and then Chase Edmonds on 3rd downs. So Kenyan Drake does not feel like a good play. And he's been banged up 7 different ways. He came out with a knee. He came out with an ankle. I think they're just going to say, hey, Kenyan, take a seat a little bit, and we're just going to get Chase in there. The offense seems 1,000% more dynamic with Chase Edmonds in there, which is tough for me to say. I've always believed in Kenyan Drake, but he's running like David Johnson did last year for the Cardinals, and I don't know what happened to Kenyan Drake. He went from feeling like a burner to looking like he's an old man in the backfield, and this is not the week to play him.
Yeah, don't do it, guys. Don't do it. And hey, before we get on to the wide receivers, I just want to say if you aren't subscribed already, you might want to consider it because the giveaway we had earlier where we gave away a signed Devontae Adams jersey, this is not the first time we've given away signed memorabilia in the past, and we plan on doing it in the future to show our appreciation for our subscribers and whatnot. So if you like the video today, why not subscribe to the channel? We would really appreciate it. You have a chance to win some stuff in the future.
I'm pretty sure as soon as we gave away the Kenny Galladay jersey, he just decided, you know what?
Oh, man. No, don't even bring that up because no. All right, moving on to the wide receivers. And I'm starting Robert Woods versus Seattle. Robert Woods has been the Rams' most productive receiver. He's getting it done. He's clearly getting much more opportunity than Cooper Kupp. More dependable on the field. He's Jared Goff's guy. Going against Seattle, you can still definitely beat Seattle. Their defense has been playing good as of late, but I'm not afraid of that. I think this game's going to be kind of nitty-gritty. It's not going to be super high scoring, I don't think. But I think Robert Woods will be one of the contributors to the points that the Rams actually do put up. So I do like Robert Woods this week going against Seattle. And then Marvin Jones against Tampa Bay. Marvin Jones, you start him when Kenny Galladay is out. And I know in the past it has seemed like he's there one game and he's gone the next. Well, he's put together a couple good games in a row. And last week was a monster game. And this guy's just a big play maker. Him and Matt Stafford connect downfield often. And Marvin Jones is a monster at catching the ball downfield. These long catches and whatnot. Some of them find the end zone. And he's been doing that. And that's a guy you can't keep him out of your lineup. If Kenny Galladay is not playing this week, which I do not expect him to play, I think his season's over. There's some other players like that, like Joe Mixon and whatnot, possibly CMC, players that we don't know their status. They've been out for several weeks. We're getting to the end of the season. There's not really a point in playing them if the team is not contending. So Marvin Jones is a slam dunk going against Tampa Bay. Their defense has been susceptible to the pass. I think Tampa Bay goes ahead in this game. So I think Marvin Jones is going to get plenty of work, through the air with Matt Stafford to try to come back in this game. So I think it's a slam dunk play. I think you got to play Marvin Jones if he's on your team. So yep, start Marvin Jones and Robert Woods. Who's starting?
With Robert Woods, I definitely love Bobby Trees. I think he's used very similarly to Deontay Johnson, and
yes.
I feel like that Seattle Rams game is going to kind of look like that Bengals Steelers game in the first half or so. Not necessarily the score, but it was just like a slow chugging, trying to dink and dunk down the field and not make a mistake. And Robert Woods is perfect for that. I mean, he's the master of the 7-yard catch. So I absolutely love the Bobby Trees pick. But would it be a video if I didn't have a revenge game start? No, it would not be a video if I didn't have a revenge game start. Gotta go A-Rob. A-Rob against the Jaguars. He's been up and down recently. He went 24 points, 10 points, 23 points, 10 points, and now he's in a revenge game. If the pattern continues, he should be sniffing like 24 points. That's not really doing a whole lot of analytics. That's just looking at a couple numbers.
Hey,
but
it's no stats nation here.
That's what I mean. Exactly. We're just looking at matchups, looking at revenge. A-Rob's is he in a contract year again? I feel like he is. I feel like A-Rob. I'm gonna have to
look at his contract because I know there was that whole thing that the Bears didn't re-sign him before, or he wants a new contract. But to me, it sounds like they have some sort of leverage. He's not a free agent, I don't think.
So A-Rob gets to stick it to his old team with his obvious start, Mitch Trubisky, quarterback, and it feels like a slam dunk play. The Jags can't cover anybody. Dude, Des Bryant scored a touchdown against them last week. Like they can't cover anybody. So A-Rob immediately in the lineup, and I know he's been wide receiver 10, but he's been up and down this year, and he's been one of those guys that you see a juicy matchup, you have to start over A-Rob seemingly. So don't tinker him out of your lineup. Make sure he's in there. And I'm also starting Amari Cooper against the Eagles. This is more of a fringe guy where you're hoping he has a big play or two to make his stat line look nice. And unfortunately, my Eagles are very good at making guys have big stat lines in the pass game. DeAndre Hopkins put my Philadelphia Eagles in a swaddle, rocked them to sleep, and then kissed them goodnight and got them ready for Christmas. So Amari Cooper usually plays well against the Eagles, especially in Dallas. So expect this to be like a weird shootout game where like it's a feel 'em out first quarter and then the game explodes second and third quarter and then the fourth quarter gets a little dicey for both teams. You can almost lock that in. But Amari Cooper is going to be a big benefactor of the Eagles' secondary being completely banged up. Darius Slay's been hurt, I'm pretty sure, in every single week the last 3 weeks. And before that, he was getting fried by every wide receiver in the NFL. So, got to get Amari in there.
All right, let's sit those wide receivers, and I'm sitting Tim Patrick versus the Los Angeles Chargers. People have used Tim Patrick the last couple weeks. Hopefully, he didn't use him last week because he burned you. In the previous weeks, he was scoring touchdowns, but this guy is hovering and struggling to get 50 yards in a game. Drew Lock is not a dependable quarterback. Tim Patrick's not a dependable player in your fantasy team going against the Chargers. Certainly not the hardest matchup, but you can't trust him. If you made it this far and just for some reason you started Tim Patrick this week, I don't know how you can have the huevos to put him in your lineup this week. You sit Tim Patrick. He's not a starter. I'm also sitting the New York Giants wide receivers versus Baltimore. This was a layup because you can't trust any of them. Slayton, clearly the best receiver on that team, but they just don't utilize him like that. Shepard, obviously a very good player too, but this offense is struggling. Daniel Jones, he didn't play last week, but Colt McCoy, not the best option as a backup. You can't trust anyone in the passing game. For some reason, Evan Ingram made the Pro Bowl, so that somehow makes this offense seem okay. It's not. The offense is bad. They're playing against Baltimore. They're going to be behind. And even when they're behind, they're not going to be able to do much with the passing game. I don't see it. You can't start a New York Giants wide receivers unless it's a super deep league and you're starting Sterling Shepard. It's a 16-team league and you have no options. Go ahead, but you're probably not here looking for that type of device. We don't have those deep players. This is about as deep as it gets, New York Giants wide receivers. So sitting them against Baltimore is a bad matchup. Who are you sitting?
I told you to sit Tyler Lockett last week against Washington, and he gave you 5.4 fantasy points in PPR leagues. Washington's legit, and I don't know what their quarterback situation is going to be since Dwayne Haskins was throwing bands in a strip club. I don't know what their game plan is going to be. I'm assuming he's going to probably be the quarterback if Alex Smith isn't healthy. If not, they're going to have to rely on a heavy run game. So I'm sitting DJ Moore. I don't like the matchup. I don't like the game plan. I don't like how this game script's going to be. I love DJ Moore as a wide receiver, but I feel like it's going to be one of those weird games where it's not high scoring because Washington's defense is great. And I think that the Panthers can kind of feel out a win, but they're also going against Ron Rivera, which is, you guessed it, another revenge game. Who would have thought I'd put a second one here? But I don't like the matchup for DJ Moore. I don't like Teddy Bridgewater really as a quarterback, which is unfortunate to say. He seems like a great guy. He seems like a great story. But I can't in good faith tell you to start DJ Moore after his second highest receiving game in his career, which stings because I love DJ Moore. And I'm sitting Corey Davis against your Green Bay Packers. And it's nothing against Corey Davis. He's been probably the second best waiver wire pickup of the year, but besides James Robinson. If I had to put money on it, that's who I'd put as number 2. But Steve, your Packers are in danger. And I wasn't gonna tell you in good faith to sit AJ Brown, right? But Derrick Henry might get 40 carries. He might get 45 carries. He might run for 250 yards on your Green Bay Packers.
All right, on to the tight ends.
Yeah, I mean, you know what's going to happen, and it's unfortunate, right? But it's going to happen. Derrick Henry, I think, is 300 yards away from 2,000 yards, and this is the game. And then he's got another game against Houston. So if he can get a solid game this week, which is probably 200 yards, he can smell those 2,000. So
all right, we're moving on. Moving on to the tight ends. We're going to fire through these, all right?
Yep.
Starting these target monsters. That's Logan Thomas versus Carolina. I don't care who the quarterback is. He's getting peppered, man. He's a reliable option. He's a tight end 1, top 10 option, no doubter. And then Hunter Henry versus Denver, same thing, getting a lot of targets. finding the end zone, going against Denver. Not a tough matchup. I like these guys a lot. These guys are tight end ones. You don't think about it unless you have someone better. I'm also sitting, and then I'm sitting Eric Ebron versus Indianapolis. Ooh, hopefully Eric Ebron didn't lose your matchup this past week.
I personally did you listen to the fantasy footballers?
I do. Yeah.
Well, did you hear the tinker job that somebody did? They were down, I think, like.
Oh my God, I did see that.
They were down like 0.2, and
They had Deontay Johnson,
and they tinkered him out.
Who does that? Who takes out the leading target on a team and puts in a tight end?
That's
because he's been dropping the ball.
Self-collusion. That's easily just self-collusion. They obviously didn't watch our video.
You must think that Deontay was going to get one pass thrown to him. He was going to drop it and get benched. That's a lot going on in your head right there. That's
easily
crazy.
What they thought. They thought, well, Ebron's going to catch one pass probably. And if we're being completely honest, right, that person's not dialed in because Eric Ebron has been just as bad with the drops as Deontay Johnson. So
yeah,
that's on you, bud. But I'm going to start Dallas Goedert at Dallas. I mean, that's just a name thing, right? He was named after the Dallas Cowboys. He's historically been pretty solid against them. He had like a 75-yard touchdown call back that I'm still bitter about from like 2 years ago. It's neither here nor there. He's primed to have a solid game after being named after the team. And I'm starting Austin Hooper against the Jets. I mean, the Browns don't have to do anything crazy. They can find their tight end in the back of the end zone for a touchdown. That's all you need this year. I've been echoing that week in and week out. You need just a touchdown out of your tight end, and you're probably going to win that tight end matchup unless you're going against Waller or Kelsey. So one of those two guys should be fine. I'm sitting Gronk against Detroit. He was supposed to get traded to Detroit, and then he retired. And it feels like he retired the last couple weeks. I don't love Gronk this week. And I'm also sitting Jared Cook. He's the only receiving option in New Orleans, which you'd say, great, that sounds awesome. I saw this with Zach Ertz last year. When the tight end is fried and he's the only receiving option and you can put two guys on him, he's probably going to finish the day poorly, and that's what happened this past week. He was absolutely atrocious. He felt like a slam dunk start. It was a trap, and you got fried by it. Somebody in my league they started him over Logan Thomas last minute, ended up losing our toilet bowl game. And that's how it goes. So sorry, Tom, that's how that went out. But Jared Cook, please don't put him in your lineup. He's done as a tight end. Sit old guys. Any old tight end, week 16, don't play them.
All right. Well, there you have it. The starts and sits for week 16, and that's going to do it a wrap for the regular season for Battle in the Trenches. Next week is tentatively on the schedule as far as what's coming up. Comment below if you want us to do a Week 17 Battle in the Trench starts and sits videos, or if you want us to do like a fantasy MVP, best picks of the year, that kind of thing. I think we'll do some imagination, come up with a good video for next week if it isn't Battle in the Trenches, but we will be here next week giving you more content. If you enjoyed today's video, subscribe. We really appreciate it. Like the video. It helps us grow. And drop a comment. Any start-sit questions, anything you need to help get you over the hump, help you make that start-sit decision in your lineup for Week 16 to hopefully take home a fantasy football championship and hopefully some money for you. So thank you for coming by. Really appreciate it. And wish you all good luck this weekend. See you.